Welcome, beloved friend. This testimony is one of those rare stories that stirs the soul, a moment that challenges what we thought we knew and opens our eyes to the transforming power of Jesus. As you watch, take a moment to let each scene sink in. Feel the weight of the story, the breakthrough, and the undeniable grace that changes everything. My name is Maryam Khalil, and I was born in a small village near Homs, Syria. For most of my childhood, I thought the world was peaceful. We lived in a simple house made of clay and stone, surrounded by olive trees and the sound of roosters every morning. My father used to sell fruits in the market, and my mother baked flatbread that smelled like heaven. I remember running barefoot with my younger brother, Kareem, chasing the wind and laughing until sunset. But everything changed the night the war came to our door. It was just after sunset when I heard the first explosion. The ground shook so hard that the plates fell from the shelf. My mother screamed for us to hide. The sky outside glowed red, and the air was filled with smoke and fear. I could hear people shouting, crying, and running. My father rushed out to help our neighbors, but he never came back. That was the last time I saw him. Kareem and I hid under the wooden table while my mother prayed in whispers. I could hear bullets in the distance, closer and closer. The walls trembled with each blast. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I remember pressing my face into my knees, trying to block out the sounds. The smell of fire and dust was everywhere. Then our door broke open with a crash, and I heard loud footsteps and angry voices. My mother pushed us toward the back room, telling us to stay quiet. That night, everything I knew burned. Our home, our neighbors' homes, and the peace in my heart. We ran into the fields, barefoot and terrified. The sky was black except for the fire behind us. I didn't know where to go, only that we had to keep moving. My brother cried until he fell asleep in my arms under a broken wall. I sat there, trembling, looking at the night sky and asking why this was happening. And then, something strange happened. In that thick darkness, I saw a light. Not like fire or a lamp, but something soft and glowing. It came from nowhere, yet it filled everything around me. The fear inside me began to calm, like someone was gently wrapping me in peace. I couldn't explain it. I felt warmth on my face, though the air was cold. My heartbeat slowed down. For the first time that night, I stopped crying. Something deep inside me knew this light wasn't from the world. I didn't understand it then, but it was the beginning of everything that would later change my life. The night grew quiet after the fire faded in the distance. My brother slept beside me, his small hand clutching my torn dress. I couldn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the soft light that still hovered a few steps away, shining gently through the ruins. It didn't move like smoke or flicker like a candle. It stayed, steady and calm, as if waiting for me to notice it. Something deep inside told me not to be afraid. My body was tired, but my heart was strangely awake. As I looked at that light, it felt like someone was near, someone who could see me even though I was hidden in the dark. I began to whisper, not even knowing to whom I was speaking, just whispering from my heart. I told whoever could hear me that I was scared, that my father was gone, that I didn't want my brother to die. My tears fell into the dust. And then, something happened. I didn't hear words like the voice of a person, but I understood what was being said. It was like the meaning entered my mind without sound. He revealed to me that I was not forgotten. That even in this place of fire and fear, there was someone who still saw me. I felt my body shake, not out of fear this time, but out of something new, something pure and comforting. I can't explain how, but I knew that the one behind that light was not of this world. He let me know that life would not always be this dark, that one day I would help others who were hurting just like me. The moment passed, but its peace stayed. I closed my eyes, and for the first time since the war began, I felt safe enough to sleep. When morning came, the light was gone. The sky was gray and silent. Smoke still hung over the village, and the smell of ash was heavy in the air. My mother found us later that day. She had been searching all night. Her clothes were covered in dust, and her face was streaked with tears. She hugged us so tight that I could hardly breathe. We walked for hours until we reached a camp filled with other families who had lost everything. Life there was hard, no school, little food, and too many stories of pain. But every night I remembered the light. Sometimes when I closed my eyes, I could still feel it shining inside me. I didn't understand it, but I knew that whatever it was, it had given me something to hold on to, hope. That silent night became the beginning of my faith, even though I didn't yet know the name of the one who found me. Life in the camp was like living between two worlds, one filled with memories of what was lost, and another where every day was a struggle just to eat and stay alive. The camp was in northern Lebanon, near the border. We lived inside a tent made from old tarps and plastic sheets, held together by ropes and wooden sticks. When it rained, the ground turned to mud, and the water leaked through the roof, dripping onto our thin blankets. My mother tried to keep us strong. She told me to take care of Kareem while she worked with other women washing clothes for strangers in the nearby town. Every morning, I stood in line with hundreds of children, waiting for food, dry bread, lentils, sometimes just water and rice. Many nights, I went to sleep hungry, but I tried not to complain because others had even less. Still, I couldn't forget that night, the light that appeared when everything went dark. When fear tried to swallow me, I remembered the warmth I felt that night. It gave me courage. There were times I would sit behind our tent and look at the mountains, whispering into the air the same way I did before. I didn't know who I was praying to, but deep down I knew he was listening. Months turned into years. The war continued, and news of death and loss reached us every week. My little brother grew quieter. He stopped playing and often stared into the distance, like he was waiting for our father to walk through the camp gates. Sometimes, at night, I could hear my mother crying softly. I wanted to tell her about the light, but I didn't know how to explain it. I was afraid she wouldn't understand. Then one afternoon, a group of people came to the camp. They weren't from any organization I knew. They brought boxes of clothes, food, and small books in Arabic. They spoke gently to us and told stories about hope and peace, not the kind that governments promise, but a different kind. They talked about forgiveness, love, and a man who gave his life so that we could be free inside, even when the world outside was still broken. I didn't understand everything they said, but something inside me moved. When one of the women smiled at me, it felt familiar, like the light I saw years ago had somehow found me again, this time through her kindness. She didn't preach loudly. She just sat with me, listened, and prayed in her heart. That day, I began to see that maybe the one who spoke to me that night was the same one they were talking about, the one who brings light to those in darkness. The woman who visited our camp was named Layla. She was from Jordan, and she spoke our language softly, like someone who understood pain. Every week she came back, bringing food, notebooks, and stories about a love that never dies. She would gather the children under a big olive tree, and we would sit on the dusty ground while she told us stories from a book called the Injil, what I later came to know as the Gospel. At first, I only came to listen because of her kindness. But every story she told seemed to speak directly to me. She spoke of a shepherd who left 99 sheep to look for one that was lost. She told us about a man who calmed storms with just his words, and about a little girl who was sick but came back to life when he took her by the hand. When I heard that story, I felt chills. It reminded me of the night the light appeared to me in the ruins, the same peace, the same voice inside my heart. One afternoon, when most of the children had gone, I stayed behind. I told Layla what happened that night in my village, how I saw the light and heard the silent voice that said I wasn't forgotten. She listened without interrupting. Her eyes filled with tears. Then she told me that she believed the one who met me that night was Jesus, the Son of God, who reveals himself to those who cry out in darkness. I didn't know what to say. My family had different beliefs, and even saying his name felt strange on my tongue. But something in my heart recognized it immediately. It was like remembering a face you've seen long ago in a dream. She didn't pressure me. She only said, Keep speaking to him the way you always have, Miriam. He has already been speaking to you. That night, I sat outside our tent and looked at the stars. I whispered again into the air, the same way I did years ago. Only this time I called his name quietly, not because someone told me to, but because it felt right. As I did, I felt that same warmth fill me again, stronger than before. He let me know that he was near. He revealed that the pain I went through was not to destroy me but to teach me compassion for others who suffer. From that night, I began to change inside. I started helping the smaller children in the camp, washing their faces, teaching them the songs Layla taught us about peace and love. I felt alive again, like I finally knew why I had survived when so many others hadn't. I didn't have much, but I had hope. And that hope became my treasure. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd be truly honored to have you join this growing family of faith and reflection. Every new heart adds something beautiful to our community. After that night under the stars, my heart was never the same. Every time I prayed, I felt that same gentle peace I had known since the night of the light. I began reading the small book Layla gave me whenever I could. It was old and torn, written in Arabic, but to me, it was more precious than gold. I hid it carefully inside a piece of cloth, away from others who might not understand. Days in the camp were still hard. We had little food, no school, and sickness spread easily. My brother Kareem grew weaker, coughing often. My mother was tired all the time. Some people in the camp became bitter and angry, while others just gave up. But I found strength in what I was learning. I began to pray not just for myself, but for everyone, for my mother, for Kareem, even for those who had hurt us. When I spoke about Jesus with a few girls my age, some listened quietly, others laughed. One of them warned me that I could get into trouble for saying his name. She said people had been punished for less. I didn't want to cause trouble, so I kept my faith quiet, hidden in my heart like a small candle. But even a small candle can make darkness tremble. Then came a time of testing. One morning, men came into the camp asking questions. They said outsiders had been spreading new beliefs, and they wanted to know who was listening to them. I felt fear rise in my chest. I didn't know what to do. My mother didn't know about my new faith, and I couldn't risk her safety. So I stayed silent. That night, I cried bitterly, thinking I had failed. But as I wept, he spoke to my heart again, not with words, but with understanding. He let me know that faith was not proven by loud speech but by how I loved others and trusted him in the dark. I realized then that silence didn't mean I had lost my faith. It meant I was learning to protect it, to let it grow stronger inside me. Days turned into months, and slowly, I began to see how his hand was guiding me. My brother's health improved after a doctor from another aid group began visiting. My mother found peace again and even smiled sometimes. I continued helping in the camp, reading stories to children, cleaning wounds, and singing soft songs about love and hope. Sometimes, at night, I would look at the stars and remember the ruins of our home, the night of fire, and that single beam of light. I now understood that it wasn't just a vision, it was a calling. The more I prayed, the more I began to understand that I was kept alive for a reason. Every memory of fear, loss, and hunger now carried a new meaning. It was as if every scar in my heart had become a doorway for light to pass through. I no longer saw myself as a victim of war but as someone who had been chosen to bring hope where there was none. When I turned 16, Layla arranged for me to attend a small learning center outside the camp. It wasn't a real school, just a few rooms with broken chairs and dusty windows, but to me, it felt like heaven. I learned to read better, to write clearly, and to speak to people with confidence. I started writing short notes about hope and slipping them into the hands of sad children, reminding them that they were not forgotten. Sometimes I visited the tents of mothers who had lost their sons or daughters. I would sit beside them in silence until they were ready to talk. Many cried, and some asked me how I could still smile after losing my father and my home. I told them that I saw a light once when everything around me was dark, and since that day, that light had never left me. One of the hardest days came when a new group of refugees arrived. Among them were many orphans, children with empty eyes who had seen too much death. Something inside me broke as I watched them sit quietly, hugging their knees in fear. That night, I prayed and asked God to show me how to help them. In my heart, He revealed that I should begin gathering them together, not just to feed or clothe them, but to remind them that love still exists. As months passed, more children began to join us under the olive tree. What started as 5 or 6 kids soon became nearly 30. Some were younger than Kareem, others were almost my age. They came barefoot, tired, and hungry, but when we gathered together, something changed in their faces, the heaviness lifted, and light slowly returned to their eyes. We called our small group Nur Fi al-Zulma, light in the darkness. Every day, we sang songs, drew pictures of birds, mountains, and sunrises, and shared stories of love stronger than fear. The same words Layla once taught me were now flowing from my own mouth. I could feel the Spirit guiding me, giving me courage I didn't know I had. One evening, as I finished teaching the children, I saw an older boy sitting alone behind one of the tents. His name was Samir, and he hadn't spoken since his parents died in a bombing. I sat beside him quietly, the way Layla used to sit with me. He didn't look at me at first, but after a while, he whispered, "Why did God leave us here?" His question pierced my heart because I had once asked the same thing. I didn't try to give him easy answers. Instead, I told him about the night I saw the light, how I thought I was forgotten, and how later I realized that God had been with me even in the ruins. He didn't say anything, but tears filled his eyes. I saw him again the next day, sitting among the other children, singing softly. That moment showed me that healing doesn't always come through big miracles. Sometimes it comes through a single heart finally feeling seen. Layla later helped me send a letter to a small Christian organization that supported young people working in camps. They replied, offering me training in counseling and teaching. I couldn't believe it. I had no money, no certificates, and no father to guide me, yet doors were opening one by one. I knew it wasn't by chance. It was grace. Every morning before the sun rose, I would pray and thank God for choosing someone as simple as me. He let me know that I didn't need a perfect life to shine. I only needed to remain faithful in the small things. I learned that true light doesn't come from power or wealth. It comes from surrender and love. By then, the children in the camp had started calling me Akhti Maryam, Sister Maryam. I didn't feel worthy of the name, but I accepted it with humility. Because if my pain could make even one child believe that hope still exists, then every tear I ever cried was worth it. There is a saying that when your faith begins to grow, life will test how real it truly is. I didn't understand that until the day I came face to face with the man who changed my life forever, the one who had taken my father's life. It happened unexpectedly. Our camp had begun to receive more displaced families as the war moved into new areas. One afternoon, while helping distribute food, I saw a face that made my whole body freeze. His eyes were sharp, his beard fuller than before, but I recognized him immediately. He was one of the men from the night my village burned, one of those who stormed into our home. I remembered his voice shouting, the sound of my father's struggle, and the silence that followed. My hands began to tremble so hard that the food tray nearly slipped from my grip. Every part of me screamed to run. Memories flooded back like a storm. The fire, the screaming, my father's last words. I hid behind the supply tent, breathing heavily, my heart pounding so fast I could hear it in my ears. Anger and fear rose together inside me like a flood. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the thin roof of our tent, asking God why He allowed me to see this man again. Part of me wanted justice, and another part, the one that remembered the light, whispered something harder, forgiveness. I didn't want to hear it. Forgive him? The man who took everything from me? I turned my face into the blanket and cried. But the more I wept, the clearer the still voice in my heart became. He revealed to me that forgiveness was not saying what happened was right, but choosing to release the chains that tied my soul to pain. For days I struggled. I avoided the man, serving in another section of the camp. But I couldn't run forever. One evening, I saw him sitting alone by the fence, coughing weakly. He looked older, thinner, and broken. Something inside me softened. I walked over, though every step felt like lifting a mountain. When I reached him, I didn't speak for a long time. Then quietly, I told him I remembered him, not to accuse, but because I wanted him to know that I had chosen to forgive. His eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw shame in them. He looked down, unable to speak. I don't know what went through his heart, but I knew something shifted in mine. The weight I had carried for years began to lift. That night, I felt peace, deep, quiet peace. He let me know that true freedom is not found in revenge, but in forgiveness. It's what turns pain into purpose and wounds into testimonies. From that day, I began to understand the real meaning of love. Not the love that feels easy, but the one that costs everything. After that night, everything inside me changed again. But this time, it wasn't because of fear or sorrow. It was because of peace. A kind of peace that doesn't come from the world, but from knowing that even in my deepest pain, God had been working for something greater. The man I forgave didn't stay long in the camp. He grew weaker and was later taken to a hospital far away. I never saw him again, but I prayed for him every night. Strangely, the more I prayed for those who once caused me pain, the lighter my heart became. It was as if the fire that once destroyed my village had now been turned into a fire of compassion, not to burn, but to heal. My small group, Norfai al-Zulma, began to grow beyond the camp. Aid workers helped us get small supplies, books, pencils, and story cards with verses about love and hope. We started visiting other camps, sharing what little we had, singing songs, and encouraging the children who felt forgotten. I began to share my story too, not to gain attention, but to remind others that even in the darkest war, God's light can still find a heart willing to believe. Sometimes, I would think back to that little girl hiding in the ruins of her home, shaking, afraid, and lost. And I would whisper, "You made it." Not because I was strong, but because the one who found me never left me. I began to dream again, not of comfort or riches, but of peace in every heart. I dreamed of building a place where orphan children could learn, sing, and grow in faith. A place where the broken could find healing, where the forgotten could know they are seen. Every time I prayed about it, I felt the same warmth that filled me the night I first saw the light. Years passed and I turned 21. I had lost much, but gained something greater, purpose. Many called me the girl who saw light in the dark, but I always said the truth was deeper. I didn't find the light found me. And he never left. Even now, whenever I face challenges or see others lose hope, I remind them of that simple truth: darkness never wins where even a small light remains. Because that light is not just what we see with our eyes, but what we carry in our hearts when we trust the one who gave it to us. If you are reading or hearing my story today, I want you to know something: God still sees you, even when you feel invisible. I was just a scared little girl in a broken land, hiding under ashes, thinking my life had ended. But even there, in the darkest place I had ever known, His light reached me. It didn't come with thunder or a loud voice. It came as peace, quiet, gentle, and real. And that same peace can find you wherever you are. The years I spent in pain taught me something I could never have learned in comfort: that faith is not built in easy days but in the nights when you have no strength left to stand. It's in those moments that you truly discover who holds you. Many times I wanted to give up. I felt forgotten, hungry, weak, and tired of hoping. But every time I thought I couldn't go on, God showed me someone else who needed the hope I was about to let go of. That's how He teaches us love, not through words only, but through people, through trials, and through the quiet whispers that say, "Keep going." If you have walked through pain, don't let it make your heart hard. Let it make your heart soft enough for compassion to grow. If people have hurt you, forgive them, not because they deserve it, but because freedom lives in forgiveness. Hatred will only chain you to the past, but forgiveness will open the door to your future. I didn't forgive the man who killed my father because I was strong. I forgave him because I finally understood that I could not carry both my pain and my purpose at the same time. One had to go. To every believer who hears my story, never forget to pray. Prayer is not about perfect words. It's about opening your heart. Study God's Word. It is where light speaks to darkness, where truth replaces fear. Don't let the noise of the world drown out His still, small voice. Spend time with Him. He listens more than you think. And most of all, love one another. This world already has enough anger, enough division, enough pain. Be the one who brings peace, even if it's just through a kind word, a prayer, or a helping hand. You never know whose life might be saved by the small act of light you give. I am still in that same region where the war once burned my home, but now I see hope where there used to be only smoke. Every morning when I see the children laughing again, I whisper a prayer of gratitude. Because the same God who found me in the dark is still shining through me, and He can shine through you too, if you let Him. The world may be full of shadows, but remember this: no darkness can ever overcome the light that lives inside a heart that believes.